Hello and welcome. Finally, we're back for another episode of Dude, Is This Thing On? I am your host, Tyler Daswick, and joining me, as always, our producer, Emilio Cariotti.
How's it going, everybody? Fucking long time no see.
Long time no see, but we are back in your ears, and we have a good show, Emilio. We are finally going to wrap up our conversation on Halo 2, which we finished last weekend.
Oh, yeah, a week ago.
Yeah, and then we are going to sort of give our overarching thoughts on E3. I know you have some opinions about sort of like the event or the week as a whole, whereas for me as kind of like an average entertainment consumer, it's a lot about the games that I'm pumped about.
Yeah, I'd love to get your opinion.
Yeah, but and of course the GB. As always.
I missed it 2 weeks without you.
Ah, man, it's going to be good.
It was tough. We got tied up. We got with work, and professionally.
Right.
Yeah, fuck, man. I feel out of like swing, I got to get back in the New York groove.
A little bit. I feel like we got to kind of warm back into the pod a little bit.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. Feet first. See what the fuck happens.
Yeah. Okay. Halo 2. I feel like I have to totally recalibrate the way I am thinking about this. I guess to give you my impressions as the Halo rookie, I think it's sort of weird because you have to distinguish. We're playing in the Master Chief Collection, so this was the debut of the Halo 2 remaster, right? This was the first time.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, immediately you can say, okay, this game is way more cinematic. The story is more dynamic and complicated. There's a lot more nuance. Obviously, they introduce like different play styles and perspectives that the first game didn't have. But I guess my question for you would be like, how much of that is the remaster just making it feel really like modern and cinematic and movie-ish, but how much is actually the original game really did expand all of these ideas?
Oh, well, like I implored to switch back and forth between the original game and the new content as much as possible. If you go back and just play through the game like by itself with the original graphics, like it looks like shit. Like it looks like hammered shit. I'm not gonna lie, but like if you can somehow transport your mind back to 2004, 2005, whenever that fucking game came out, and look at it through that lens, it definitely was a huge fucking step forward from the first one. At least story-wise. Like, cinematically with, like, the camera angles, if you can call it that, in, like, the cutscenes and shit like that. It was a huge leap. Obviously, that's kind of lost on us now because it just looks fucking terrible. So they had to, zhuzh it up a little bit with, like, the new cinematics. But as far as scope and story goes, it's streets ahead. You could fucking tell. I know you can. You told me about it. You were like, yeah, this is like the characters are way more fleshed out. Like there was a story to this one. While in Halo 1, it was basic. It was just a basic shooter, which is fine. But you can definitely tell the difference. It's night and day, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like the first Halo definitely felt like a modern shooter, and we talked about kind of how sort of revelatory that is. That it came out 2001, the original Halo.
Yeah, it was developed like 1998, 1999, but
holy
eventually
cow.
It gets released in like 2001, I believe.
Yeah, so like that was so impressive because it was like, oh, this feels so intuitive, and I was really reared on. I didn't have shooting games until. Man, we were about to graduate high school, so like 2011, 2012.
You had a Wii, and you were playing Call of Duty 5.
Yeah,
that's
right. That's right. But I think it said it spoke a lot to me on the sort of legacy of Halo that I was able to pick up this over 15-year-old game and play it in a way that felt really natural and easy. There wasn't a learning curve really to it. And so that like skeleton of what a shooter would be was there. And I do feel like your metaphor is really apt. Like it's literally more fleshed out. Mm-hmm. Like you can see the muscles, you can see the tendons, you can see all that stuff. And it's kind of a similar like Half-Life to Half-Life 2 relationship. Yeah, maybe not quite as like huge of a jump, but the same of like okay, we've really nailed all of these core mechanics, like that 30 seconds of fun idea that you were telling me about.
Mm-hmm.
But now let's stretch our technical limits as far as we can. And now that we know the core that works, let's build around that a world that's really cool and a story that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Once they got the gameplay mechanics down, like, you're going to see if we get around to playing Halo 3, like, that's not going to change. They really don't change any of that shit up until Halo Reach, which is why that game has, like, mixed reviews. Like, some people really like it, some people really hate it. But, like, the first 3 in the trilogy, like, the mechanics are the same. And you could tell, I know you could, because we jumped right, besides all the fucking technical difficulties that we had, once we got the game working and we both got into the same goddamn game, you jumped right in. I didn't have to explain to you how, like, any of the guns worked or anything, really. It was a quick thing. I'm like, assault rifles are gone. It's all about the BR, and you can dual wield. And then I was like, and then have at it, because everything else is pretty much exactly the same. It's just more, like, confetti, more shit on the side that really kind of, like, fleshes out and, like, rounds out the entire experience.
Yeah, and I know this is a big reason you were excited to talk about it, is you said, I think this is one of the great science fiction stories.
Yeah,
and it is. I think what I was really surprised by, because to be honest, I was like, okay, I don't know how much credit I'm about to give a video game, but like it really is multidimensional in a way that is super impressive. Mm-hmm. Like the world building is probably an overused phrase now in the age of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, they fucking do that shit. Yeah, with Game of Thrones and stuff in your Marvel universe and your open world game crap that's happening right now. But yeah.
Yeah, but it's apt with Halo because the lore, and there really is a lore, which I was stunned by, feels really complete. Like, everything has a history, everything has an explanation, everything has an origin. And normally when stories explore, like, the beginnings of things, like, sometimes things don't need to be explained, like the case in point was our conversation about Han Solo.
Yeah.
Who cares where he came from? He feels complete without that. Halo, the original Halo was a good story, but it is to their immense credit that they were like, okay, but now we're going to explore sort of like the motivations of the enemies, which is such an underused or underserved, like, narrative aspect of video games, is explaining the motivations of who you're killing. It is so much to their credit that they were able to do that with the Covenant, and even for the Flood, which was pretty mind blowing.
Right, that's actually a good point. I didn't really think about that.
Like, they gave mindless zombies a reason for doing what they did.
Yeah.
And it made total sense. It fit in completely naturally with what we knew about Halo from the first game. I think the more I reflect on that, I think that is such an impressive, underappreciated aspect of the game for me, where, yeah, of course, like, it really paved the way for all these shooter mechanics, but it really built this great, like, science fiction around all that stuff. That's incredible.
I kind of had a little spark of hope, like, after we were done playing Halo 2, because we were we crapped it out. I can't think of a fucking right word. God damn it. I'll cut this later. We banged it out, I guess, is the term.
Sure.
In, like, 2 days? We didn't spend that much time on it or anything like that, right? Or what, am I misremembering this?
No, yeah, it took us 2 sessions. I bet we played the game. I bet we finished the campaign in, like, 10 hours?
Something like that. We took our time, but we didn't, lollygag around. But, like, I felt like after we, the last cutscene goes, we kill Tartarus or whatever, which, spoiler alert, you kill the bad guy in the end. Fucking play the game. It's, 18 years old. I felt like after we were done playing it, it was just like, all right, dude, I'll see you later. And I was like, I don't know if that was really underwhelming for him. But then I was like, don't worry about it. It'll burrow into his fucking head and he'll be taking a shit and then boom, it'll fucking hit him. So I'm glad that you reflected on it later and actually got some, like, real substance out of it. That's making me all warm inside.
Yeah. And I think to sort of justify the immediate response, the game ends really abruptly.
It does, yeah. People were not happy with that. There was chaos in the gaming community.
Okay, yeah, take me inside that. Like, was it upsetting, or was it just like, oh, like when's the next one?
Like, I mean, a mixture of both. It was so, when's the next one, that it was upsetting, you know? It was so abrupt that people were like, that's it? Like, there were controllers through TV screens when the fucking, like, screen cut the black there. And, I mean, the reason being is that, I mean, I was talking to you about it a little bit while we were playing through it. Like, the game was supposed to be so big when it was initially conceived that these guys, the guys at Bungie, were working on this game for fucking ever, you know? Like, they were just 3 years for a game in 2004 was like unheard of. It had like one of the largest budgets of any video games up to that point. And they were dedicating all this time to it that eventually, towards the end of its development, Microsoft had to step in and be like, stop touching your keyboards. Like, we're shipping this game in 4 hours. You cannot change anything else. We will sue you if you, like, you know, push this game back anymore. Stop it. Take your fucking hands off the keyboards, you know?
Okay.
And so because of that, they say, most people at Bungie will say conservatively that about a third of the game got cut, but some people at Bungie, the higher ups, have like recently kind of admitted like, yeah, probably about a good half of the game ended up getting cut. So what we see in Halo, as long as it is only half of what they really wanted. And eventually you were supposed to go back down to Earth and finish the fight on Earth. So pretty much all of Halo 3. Or at least half of Halo 3, you know, which you'll see later. But they had to cut it short, and so the last line is finishing this fight, boom, cut to black, skip to 3-4 years later when the third game in the franchise finally gets released. So people were not happy. And the developers weren't happy either, because they felt like they had fucking betrayed everyone, because people were sending them like hate mail and shit.
Wow. That's amazing to leave, because you think, like, as much as I pay attention to movies and TV shows, you think about sort of the editing process, right? Is like, that's kind of where you decide how your story comes together at the end.
Yeah, you got all these little shots, and then you got to, you know, clip it together.
Yeah, you shoot like 4 or 5 hours of movie, and then you get your rough cut, which is like your 3-hour version, and then your final version is an hour 45. And there's all this other stuff. Honestly, man, like, it had, I don't know if you saw over the Hangouts call, but my jaw dropped when you said they left a third of it out. Yeah. It had never occurred to me that video games go through that process.
That's the conservative like estimate, though. Like, a lot of people say half nowadays, that half of the game is left on the cutting room floor. That's incredible.
That is incredible. So, yeah. I mean, I know you can't spoil anything about the next game, but is that what people say Halo 3 is? It's just the second half of Halo 2?
No, like, it doesn't have that, like, stigma about it. Like, Halo 3, the story for it is just considered so, like, cherished by a lot of people. A lot of people consider the third game their favorite, not just for multiplayer. Like, multiplayer, they say it is the peak of Halo, but a lot of people consider the story their favorite too, and it's a really good story. I don't think anyone really considers it like Halo 2's leftovers, because they did such a good job, like, finishing it up, that it didn't ever feel like a second thought or something that they picked up like scraps from the cutting room floor and kind of piece it together. Because you can go back, and like I said, they documented a lot of this stuff in video form. You can go back and watch the Vidocs for Bungie while they were making Halo 2, and you can see what really got cut or what they were thinking about, and none of it that I can think of. Maybe like rough ideas like concept art and stuff like that, but nothing as far as story that I can think of made it into the third game. It's really kind of original. They kind of just cut their losses and were like, okay, we fucked up pretty bad, and we're going to learn from this, and we're going to manage our time and our expectations a little bit more with like the technology that we have. So we're not going to be as ambitious in length, but a little bit more ambitious in like scope and like, I don't know, impactfulness, I guess you could say. But I never got the sense that they were just kind of picking up like spare ideas that didn't make it into the second game and being like, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna completely do the story just based on the shit that didn't make it into the second game. Got it.
Okay, but that makes me want to ask you this. Like, do you look at, okay, so 3 years of development, unheard of at the time. Do you see it as like they kind of fell victim to their own mistake by having these insane ambitions that already like were really pushing the boundaries of game development and time and, you know, like budget and all of that.
Yeah.
And they still like didn't account for like, you know, up to half of this stuff? Or was it like, no, the studio should have just gotten out of their way and let them make the game they want?
No, it was their fault. Like, yeah.
Oh, really?
They definitely like, I mean, kudos to them. They're artists, you know. You never, if you ever know any artist, whatever their medium, if it's comedy, paint, poetry, writing, doesn't fucking matter, you know. An artist is not creative, is a creative. They will work on something until the very last minute, until it's ripped from their hands, because they'll never think that it's good enough.
Right.
And that's the irony of the artist, is that they'll work on something until it goes from terrible to good to masterpiece to terrible again. You know, like complete that fucking cycle of art. And I mean, if the studio had just been like, oh no, it's okay, take your time, it's fine. Oh, do you want some cookies? The game probably would have fucking sucked. Like, let's be real. Some of the ideas that they threw out there, I was like, ooh, I'm glad they cut that. But they were like super hyped and like, God damn it, if only Coveted Ship had made it into the fucking game, or you know, like Forerunner Tank. If only Forerunner Tank had made it into the fucking game. Oh, it would have been that much better. But I'm sitting there listening to the Vidoc and I'm like, oh, thank fucking Christ.
Wow.
Thank Christ they didn't put that in there. It would have totally messed with the feng shui of like the entire story, in my personal opinion. That being said, there's some good shit that I was like, fuck, God damn it, why didn't they put that in there? But, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. And I think they fell victim to their own ambitions. And I think the studio was actually in the right to finally step in and be like, yo, you guys have had like 3 years and like $500 million to work on this fucking thing. Like, please just finish it up. Like, you're going to kill this franchise if we let you work on it anymore.
Got it. So here's the other thing I want to understand coming into it so late. Now, I just remember in high school when a Call of Duty game would come out, so much of the hype and the anticipation would revolve around the sort of next iteration of the multiplayer and kind of focusing on all the sort of like gimmicks and modes and maps and all the things around that. And no one ever talked about campaign or story or anything. It was all really like, what kind of kill streak rewards are going to be there? What kind of like new perks, gimmicks, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. When like, so Halo 3 is this huge anticipated game.
Yeah,
like,
you should see the ad campaigns for this game. They went all fucking out for Halo 3.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that. But
yeah.
Like, but I mean, as it's ramping up, are people is sort of like the culture around Halo similarly focused on just the multiplayer, or are people taking it as a more kind of cohesive package, including the narrative and all that stuff?
It's cohesive. It's very cohesive. It's not split. Split makes it sound like there was half the people that are only into Halo for the multiplayer, and there's half the people that are only into Halo for like the campaign. I mean, there's obviously, you're always going to have outliers where you have people who never played a single level of fucking Halo, because you don't have to. You can just go over to the multiplayer menu and play that shit. But most people were both, where they were like, I love the multiplayer, like that. I love spending all those hours like playing with my friends. But first, I'm going to play through the campaign, like at least on normal, just to play through the campaign, just to see it, and then I'll switch over. And that's how I was too. I still abide by that rule to this day. I don't have a single game that has a single player component and a multiplayer component where I don't, no matter how much I hate the story, no matter how much I don't give a fuck about it, I always do my duty and vote and play the video game all the way through to the end before I even touch multiplayer, even if it kills me. Battlefield 1's a great example. I love Battlefield 1's multiplayer. I played through the campaign one time as quickly as fucking possible because it was so painfully bad, but I felt like it was my duty to play it at least once. But to answer your question, because I went off on a tangent as usual, Halo 3's was a cohesive package. Like, people loved the multiplayer. Halo 2's multiplayer pretty much made the esports community what it is today. It started out with, QuakeCon and shit like that. I get it. But it really kind of came into its own with Halo 2's multiplayer, where they started broadcasting that shit on TV, like Spike and stuff. But I mean, the tagline of Halo 3 was finish the fight. Like, people were in it to finish it out. get Cortana back, see if you could fucking save the universe, you know?
That's cool. Also,
Yeah.
thank you for that look at modern video game idealism, where you have to defend the right to play single player.
I hate myself sometimes. I'm like, oh god damn. Okay, I guess I'm gonna go along. No offense to fucking. I don't. Some people really like Halo 4. I think it's dog shit. Halo 5 is like, I don't know what's worse than dog shit. Rat shit. I can't even think of anything worse. Roach shit. It's that bad. I still played through Halo 5's campaign, man. I played through it on... I don't think I actually got all the way through it on Legendary, but I got through a pretty healthy portion of it on Legendary before I was like, why am I doing this again? I don't give a fuck if I have this on Legendary. Like, I just don't care about this achievement. But I did my civic duty, man, and I played that piece of crap campaign to the end before I even touched the multiplayer. And the multiplayer wasn't even that good, so it was a real letdown.
Dang. Well, dude, I am super pumped for Halo 3.
Cool.
We're gonna have a cool episode about that. But let's switch over to E3
Okay.
and kind of try to get our thoughts together about it. I'm really curious for your perspective on this as someone who's really in touch with the community, because I feel like, really ever since kind of middle school, high school, I've kind of fallen out of like the video game news cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But every year around E3, I there's just like some weird like old alarm in my head that like shakes off the dust and is like, oh, June, like, oh, E3 is coming out.
It's like Shark Week.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's good. And I will check the dates online and be like, okay, that week I'm going to, dive back into Kotaku and Polygon and all those places and see
IGN.
IGN, exactly. And see what's going on. And so for me, like, it rises to the surface, and that means it just is all about like what games look cool and what looks fun, and like, okay, like what's coming out for Xbox? Okay, I should probably still switch to a PlayStation or a Switch, and yeah.
Woe is me.
But I mean, when we were sort of texting back and forth last week as it was all going on, there seems to be sort of like a inside baseball narrative of E3 that I wasn't familiar with, that kind of goes past what the games, and you were telling me about as we were playing Halo, something about like its purpose and why it exists.
Yeah, I mean, if is that your question? Like, why does E3 exist?
Well, I mean, you seem like you don't approach that week in the same way I do, where I'm like, oh, cool, like what new games are coming out, and it's kind of like my way of keeping up with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's actually a good point, because you're right. I don't actually, now that I think about it, I don't approach it the same way, because I know what new games are coming out. Really, there's not too many. I mean, at least the past couple E3s, especially this most recent one, like there wasn't anything new really that got announced that I was really like blown away by. I don't even know if Resident Evil 2 Remastered, like the remake, was announced during E3, or if people had already known about it, because there's so many leaks nowadays, like you get screenshots, you get like teasers months and months and months before E3 that I already know going into E3 which games I'm interested in seeing, really, like up close, where I'll check like at the end of every day, like Red Dead Redemption 2 E3, and see if anything got, and if anything new came out from that or anything. But like, it's not as on like the cutting edge anymore. That's why I don't really see a purpose for it anymore, where a lot of times it's just like, here's the most current version of whatever we're working on. I know we just showed it to you 2 months ago, but here's a little bit of it from a different angle, and enjoy. And the release date says Q4 2019, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, well, that was nothing. Like, that was nothing. And every single game that really got showcased at E3, I'm sure I'm missing some. I'm sure there's a lot more niche stuff out there that people are like, oh, well, Hammer Time 2 came out, and you're not... I don't know what Hammer Time 2 is, dude. Like, I'm just talking about, like, more of the mainstream stuff, because,
right,
let's face it, E3 is a huge mainstream fucking convention now, It's not QuakeCon. It's not niche, like, nerdy shit, really. It's the culture. It's the Oscars it's the Tribeca or the what the fuck's it called, the Sundance of video games nowadays, where it doesn't have the same pedigree that it used to. I fail to see like why we need to showcase all this stuff. Just release it like on the internet. YouTube is its own E3. I don't feel any need to go there in person because I'm not going to miss anything. Maybe I might miss a demo, but even then, some kid's going to upload it on his shitty smartphone anyway. Like, I'll see it. I will see it. I will definitely see whatever E3 had to offer. And, I mean, I know it's probably like, cut together to make the presenters look bad, but every single year it seems to get, everyone in the audience seems to get less and less enthusiastic about the dumb shit that producers are putting on. Like, what are you doing? You don't need to play laser tag to promote this game, Ubisoft. Like, you don't need to have some sort of mock, like, hostage terrorist negotiation thing for Rainbow Six. Like, the game's been out for 3 years. You're just promoting the next DLC. There's no reason why you should have spent this much money on this. Just update me when it's almost done, right? Like, I don't need to know about this so many months in advance. Maybe I'm just alone in this. From what I've read on the internet, a lot of people seem not that enthused about E3. It kind of came and went. When 10 years ago, E3 was like the thing, dude. Like,
totally.
I would TiVo that shit. I TiVo'd E3 like the summer of 2010 because I can't even remember what the fuck came out then, but it was a bunch of shit. Maybe it was BioShock Infinite, where I was like, I need to fucking see this. But like this just, I don't know. I don't understand the point of E3 anymore. There's nothing that'll be shown that I can't find on the internet like a day or two later. I don't mind finding out about something 12 hours after the rest of the people do, because they find out about it and then they get to text it to their friends and shit like that. But it's like they're all still in the same room together. It's not like it's dispersing like some sort of virus. And if it does, it happens on the internet anyway, and I fucking see it, so it doesn't matter. I'm confused by the whole thing. It just doesn't have the same like a less like luster, I guess, that it had before. It's just this stupid thing that looks like it's a cash grab. So it feels like a cash grab.
Yeah. You know what? What that brings back to mind that I hadn't thought of in a long time is I remember as a kid following it. And what was really frustrating year after year that I'd always forget about in my anticipation of, like, back to the Wii thing, what Nintendo was going to do.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, oh, man, maybe we'll get a new Zelda. Maybe we'll get a new Mario. Maybe we'll get a new Smash Brothers. Like, all of that anticipation would always bury the inevitable feeling I would get of disappointment when there was a huge lack of specifics. And like, I remember, I can't remember a specific rollout, but I remember feeling time after time, developers would say, we have this game coming out. Here's like a 100-second trailer, minute 40, where there's no in-game footage, but we've assembled this like really tight cinematic that is enticing and cool, and then coming soon. It's like, what? Wait, what does that mean? And I remember that being so frustrating. And it is amazing to me that I still have that feeling after E3. Like, the internet now is so information heavy, and I think that's changed a lot of the ways these rollouts look, but it hasn't changed the way developers communicate information about their games, which is crazy. Like, why isn't there more information sooner now? I feel like E3 is still like, yeah, we're making a new Halo game. Oh, cool. Like, anything else? No.
Yeah, no. Like, can't talk about it. NDA.
Wait, what?
Yeah, right. Like, I get it. It's always kind of been like that. Like, it's mostly just trailers. Like, the demo has kind of died, really. Like, really intricate kind of demos. Because I know exactly what you're saying. Not to harp on Ubisoft again, but these guys are like serial fucking offenders of this.
Yeah.
But it go back to any video game that they've touched in the past 8 years and see their demos for it for E3 or Sony or whatever, whichever fucking platform they're promoting it on. And they have exactly like you described. This really tight, like, squad of quote-unquote online gamers that are all communicating, being like, hey, Cindy, I just found a Mark 17 over here. Wow, thanks, Brad. And she goes over and picks it up, and she's like, this is a cool weapon. Like, oh, fuck, really? God damn, you're not even trying, fucking Ubisoft. You're not even fucking trying. And then you know that as soon as you step on that game, I'm looking at you, fucking Tom Clancy's, God, what the hell was it called? I can't even fucking remember. Not Ghost Recon. The open world like Destiny MMO game.
Shit.
Shit.
The Division.
Fucking The Division. The biggest piece of shit. So like, you see this tight-knit squad of like quote-unquote badasses that are all like,
right.
Ethnically and genderly diverse, so they meet their quotas. And then you're like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm going to go on to online. It's going to be just like this. And Cindy's going to get the battle rifle. And then you get on, it's a bunch of people saying the N-word and calling you, like, gay. It's like, Come on. Are you serious? Like, the community doesn't look like that. But the problem is that they can't reflect the community because, let's be honest, the online community is, like, super racist and super homophobic. And so you can't have that in a family-friendly event like E3. So they put on this charade. But nobody's buying it, so why are you even doing it? Just don't do it. Just be like, listen, we know you guys are monsters. Somebody sent a dick pic to like a mentally handicapped kid a month ago on our servers. We know. Just please behave. And here's the demo for the new game. There's no talking, just shooting. It's like, great, cool. Just give us that, because otherwise it feels like you're just dicking us around for profit.
Yeah, and that is something that I actually didn't really know explicitly until this year, when I actually finally joined like a Reddit conversation about E3, and I was like, because it's
bold, young sir, because
it's just like, I was like, oh, like, these are the people who like really follow this stuff, so I wonder like, what their impressions will be. And so I clicked around on a couple like trailers and demo videos and things like that. And what I didn't realize is how tightly choreographed all of this stuff is. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a kid seeing demos, the one that really stands out is the BioShock Infinite demo was unbelievable. But it just never occurred to me as a kid that it was really tightly programmed, really intensely choreographed,
sweet summer child.
I know, yeah, I know.
How naive.
I know.
Yes.
I can see your face.
Even the great irrational games will choreograph their demos. Of course they will, Tyler.
And it sets up all of these false promises about the game, and I think there's a small minority of BioShock fans who were disappointed with Infinite because the gameplay didn't match what they saw.
Yeah, and I know I loved that game, but I understand that it's nothing like that original demo at all.
Yeah, and it kind of colors the way I see, like, I mean, the demo that I was most excited about was The Last of Us 2, that showed a sort of like fluidity of combat that was really, really cool, and natural and dynamic, and changed on the fly a lot as the character like crawled under vehicles and sprinted towards someone and like grabbed something on the run and then threw it in one motion, and the way the enemies reacted and everything, and watching it, knowing that all of that is behind the scenes, it does sort of make me want to align myself with your perspective a little bit, and kind of look at all this and be like, well, why are we doing this? Like, I understand, of course, like, you want to get people excited about your game, but why do we need this venue for it when social media will have you reach the same community
for a fraction of the cost?
Yes, exactly. Then for a fraction of the cost, and I think like, it's what it really amounts to is like, what is all the showmanship for? Both on like, it makes sense on a programming level for that demo. You want your game to look as good as possible, but on a like event, we're up on a stage presenting level, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I think people still buy into it a lot because there's always that glimmer of hope that maybe the game will actually be as good as what the demo's showing. So The Last of Us 1 is actually a really good example, because when I saw the demo, like, of course it's choreographed and scripted. You know, it's a little snippet of the entire game. It's almost like cutscene. What they're really kind of trying to show off in that demo is the fluidity of combat and the programming that went into redesigning how combat is, you know, played in Naughty Dog sort of games. It's sort of to for the people who are really into the behind the scenes stuff, like the actual coding and programming. I'm probably using the fucking wrong words because guess what? I'm not that savvy with it. But for people who are really into the behind the scenes stuff, that demo is good for them because it showcases the technology and shows how it's really pushing the limits for something like hand-to-hand combat, which is very difficult to get moving people to look like actual moving people and not like pieces of spaghetti or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Now, will the game be as good as that without any flaws, you know, perfect, pimpleless sort of representation of this game? Probably not, but it's still cool to see sort of what they're aiming at. And in a perfect scenario, I'm sure there will be snippets of that game where I'll be playing it and I'm like, wow, this looks just as good as E3's demo. Will the entire game be like that? No, of course not. There's always going to be little flaws, which is why, in my mind at least, they just don't cut the showmanship, like you said, and let kids get the controller in their hand, people get the controller in their hands and play through the fucking game, like just their own 10-15 minute demo, because then you're adding in all these variables where something bad might happen and then someone goes online and tweets about it and be like, oh, you know, I was playing through the demo and it red ringed, it crashed, you know, fucking the dude's head accidentally went through the car window and it glitched down into like the car seat and it looked stupid, look at this,
right,
this game sucks. And then there you go. You got this bad rap right out the thing, and you're going to get Polygon's going to write a fucking article on it. And, you know, Kotaku's going to be like, oh, well, you know, we could see her breasts through the shirt, so F-. And it's like, well, fuck, man. It's like a 20-minute demo. Just, like, wait for the game to come out first. So, like, I see that from their perspective, but I still wish I side with you. Like, cut the showmanship. You're not fooling me. Just play the goddamn film, you know? Like, you're just like, get on with it, you know?
Right.
It's just, and I feel like that's just everyone in the audience these days.
Yeah. You know, like, what rollout I actually was kind of impressed with in terms of the strategy. I thought, now, the game itself, I think, is a separate conversation and one that we've probably voiced our cynicism about. But Fallout 76, I thought was very smart in sort of basically just like leveraging the way modern media works and how they do it. Like a couple weeks
is great at that, by the way.
Notoriously so.
Notorious. They're very tight-lipped. There's a few game developers out there that are notorious. Rockstar's another one. Rockstar will, if for some reason a nuclear bomb hits all of Rockstar's headquarters or something like that, and all of them die, we will never get Red Dead Redemption 2. It'll die with them, you know? Like, they won't ever be... There's no contingency just in case to get the game out, you know? Those guys are so tight-lipped that each one of them has, like, a cyanide cap in their molar before they would tell the press anything about anything that they're fucking working on. And Bethesda's pretty similar to that, too. They're a little bit more teasy about it. They'll do the please stand by shit, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know? And then it'll be media silence for, like, a week before they present.
Yeah, but see, I think... because they, as a company, have like built that culture of we've made something special and we want to keep it a secret because this strategy is really important to us. I think that makes the tease stuff work really well. Like, please stand by. 48 hours, we're going to get something. 48 hours, they give us a Fallout 76 trailer. E3 is the next week. There's a version of this that they just show that trailer, but they give us the, like, not like a full-length gameplay trailer, but they give us essentially a story trailer and a concept trailer beforehand. And then at E3, they debut a full trailer. And then, I mean, it must have been over an hour of gameplay footage. And I'm sure, like, from what I remember, I hope I'm not misremembering, but they gave several outlets hands-on time with the game. And they had details and details and details, and there were features on all of those sites that we've mentioned about how Fallout 76 will work, how it will function, the mechanics of the game. And I think that I really respect that because it is so forthcoming, and it doesn't play games in a media era that frankly can see right through that and, access leaks and find the information it wants and get a hold of all that stuff. And I just really respect that company was just like, here's our trailer. We're going to tell you what essentially we're going to show at E3. So get excited because we're going to talk about Fallout 76. And then they backed it up with all this shit. That was cool. That was cool to me.
That's because developers like Bethesda, like id, like Rockstar, they know they have good. They know they got the goods, baby. They got the fucking goods to back it up. Other game developers, they don't. A lot of times they're like, it's either just a rehash, like, wow, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, oh my god, Assassin's Creed in ancient Greece, how come no one's ever fucking... That looks like shit, right? It looks like just the Greek version of the bullshit that came before.
Yeah.
Once Ubisoft, I know I harp on Ubisoft all the time. I got a bone to pick with these motherfuckers, though, because they were such a big part of my childhood, and now they suck. God damn it. But once they accidentally discover a new idea, they milk it fucking dry. So Assassin's Creed Odyssey looks just like Assassin's Creed Egypt, whatever the fuck the other one was called.
Don't remember.
I can't fucking remember. That's how lame the game was. It had no lasting impact. But they're scared, and they have to put on all the showmanship because they have to get people as excited as possible so that you can get as many pre-orders as possible so that you can get as many sales out the door on day one before everyone gets bored with the game and figures out that it was actually a gigantic pile of diarrhea. There you go. But every once in a while, they'll strike gold. Rainbow Six, they had no idea what they fucking had on their hands until a year later when people were still playing the game. It was still getting a lot of Twitch streaming, and the numbers were actually increasing. So they started rolling out DLC, which I know they did as an afterthought. A good afterthought, but there's no way they fucking had that in the bag. I absolutely goddamn doubt it. That's the difference between a developer like Ubisoft and developers like Bethesda, Rockstar, id, fucking Irrational before it changed hats, Bungie until Destiny, pretty much, like good developers.
Yeah, and it still kind of leaves me in this space where I'm not sure what to think about those games that do kind of show like the little one-off trailers. Like you can't even call the Elder Scrolls trailer a trailer that shows nothing.
It's a teaser. Yeah, it's a teaser.
Right. Like that's the right word. Like we got the Elder Scrolls teaser, we got the Halo Infinite teaser, we really got a Cyberpunk trailer though.
We did. It was a good trailer. That game looks tight.
That game looks so cool. But we haven't seen gameplay for it.
No. It's still pretty deep in development. Honestly, like the trailer looks cool and it's got me excited, but man, dude, they should have probably held on to that for a couple more months at least until they had something workable to show. They don't even have they don't have a demo. Like it's probably still in like phase 1 or 2 of development, if I had to guess.
Wow. See, and that I think that's my question.
I trust those guys, so hopefully they can pull it off.
They make good video games, man. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's kind of where you have to land is what's your faith in the developer look like? Because, like, okay, Halo Infinite, it's like, why are you playing this card so early? Is it because you have nothing else in your hand, or because you're this excited about the game and you know it's a winner, right?
They're desperate, if I had to guess.
Really?
Yeah, because Halo 5 was so bad that they have to recoup the losses. I mean, if you look at Halo, I'm actually kind of excited for Halo Infinite, just based off the teaser, because it went back to the roots of the fucking franchise, and the concept art looks solid. It doesn't look all like spacey and plasticky like it did in Halo 5. And the reason that they buckled so hard and retreated back to the days of Bungie is because they knew that they couldn't produce a winner with probably their own ideas and content, which is really sad, but in a way, it's good. It's better for the consumer.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you've landed on a good point, and I think it goes back to really developer reputation. Like the Doom sequel didn't really show us anything. It was just kind of like a cool cinematic, but I was like, Shit, like the first one was super good, and it makes good video games. So that sounds awesome,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
all you
excited. You know, like and I honestly felt that way about Smash Brothers. Like they showed us a lot in terms of footage. I don't know if anyone actually played it, but
I'm sure there's demos.
yeah, they're much better at that now than they used to be, I think.
Mhm.
But you know that's another one where like, you know, you could and just be like, okay, well, Nintendo seems to have found like really like the system they've wanted to make all along, and they've literally turned out like a pair of masterpieces for it
Mhm.
already, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, so you just trust it. You just trust that game's going to be good. Halo Infinite, people can fall on both sides of the fence.
Mhm.
Cyberpunk, who developed The Witcher 3? What company is that?
CD Projekt Red.
CD Projekt Red.
Mhm.
Like, okay, that company makes good video games, so I'm willing to give them more, like a longer leash, more benefit of the doubt that this Cyberpunk game is going to be cool based on this look alone. Whereas other companies, you know, like Bungie and Halo Infinite, like that's going to be shorter for a lot of people.
It is, especially when you're coming off of losses. You know, you're coming off of bad rep, even for Bungie. You know, a lot of people are like, God, man, how the mighty have fallen. Destiny 2 wasn't that great. It was really good. Like launch day, I thought I had a pretty strong launch. Honestly, I definitely played it day one, and I played it for a few weeks afterwards. But the DLC game was fucking weak. It just dropped off real fast, and so they're desperate to recoup those losses. So they came out strong in E3. A lot of people are actually pleasantly surprised with this current round of DLCs. So you know they're getting some faith back. But 343, they're, I guess, I wouldn't call it protege. They're mutant clone, I guess.
Yeah.
They're like weird clone from Alien 3 or Alien 4. Like they are coming off of two really heavy duty losses. So they really need to go all in and try and get people back into the franchise. So yeah, they went with the Halo Infinite trailer, mainly to show off the tech. Again, the main drive here, if you go back and watch the trailer at the very bottom, it says like sourced with the Reclaimer engine, something. I forget what the name of the new engine is. But Slipstream, it's Slipstream space engine.
Right.
Slipstream engine. Sourced with like the Slipstream engine, in-game footage. Like that's literally in between the lines right there. That's really what they're showing off. It's like, look at this engine. Look how fucking beautiful this is. We're going to push the limits of the technology just like Bungie did before us. And you guys are going to be happy with the result. That's really what Halo Infinite is trying to show.
Got it. That's cool. That's cool insight. Do you have any more thoughts on E3 before we get to the grab bag?
Not really. No, just uneventful. I don't remember it too well, honestly. That's about it. But I'm hopeful about some things, not super stoked about others. You know, just another day in the game industry.
Yeah, just really another day.
Just a fucking another day at the office.
All right, then let's move to the grab bag. I've got a fast one because I know you've got a pair.
I do. A little pairing, cheese and wine.
I actually might double down on this show in terms of next week's grab bag too, all because right. The timing of the second season is about to come out. But you ever watch Glow on Netflix?
I've heard good things, but no, I haven't checked it out.
It's a weird show to sell people on because it is about a group of women who try to make a wrestling TV show in the 80s.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's people think, oh, it's about professional wrestling. I don't want to watch it. Well, no, really, it's about women who try to make a show about professional wrestling. So it has like a weird layer to it that is hard, I think, to sell people on. But the quick pitch is the cast is great. Alison Brie is the lead, and she's super funny and weirdly like her character is very abrasive, so like untraditionally funny.
Interesting.
Betty Gilpin is opposite her, who's probably the best performance in the show and should get an Emmy nomination, I think. Mark Maron is the male lead, and he's funny. It's a supernatural role for him. He plays this total dickweed who's just
perfect.
Who's just great.
Play your strengths.
Yeah, exactly. My way into the show was, this is about wrestling, and I still have a really soft spot in my heart for pro wrestling.
Yeah, I always found that really interesting about you. You're like a wrestlehead, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. The inside baseball wrestling term is I'm a mark. Is what that's
cool.
called.
All right, dope. I've learned something today.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's way cooler than it should be. No offense. Makes you sound like a fucking assassin.
No, yeah, you're totally right. But that was my way in. It's like, oh, this is about wrestling, and I like that stuff. But it really is much more of it's much funnier than I gave it credit for, and it's much more of like a good, solid character ensemble comedy than I gave it credit for. In some ways, it's almost like a workplace comedy. It's about these people trying to make a TV show.
That's cool. That sounds actually really interesting.
Yeah, so that's Glow. I think the first season it's either 8 episodes or 10 episodes. It's already out, but the next season 2, which I'm watching right now for review, comes out a week from today. So June 29th. So I'll probably circle back on it for the next grab bag.
Dude, could I say that is the best fucking feeling in the world when you're watching a show that you just discovered and you're down to the last episode of whatever season, and then you look like, oh god, when's season 3 of blah 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 coming out? And it's like, oh, 2 days from now. It's like fucking score. I love that fucking feeling.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool. I'll check it out. If I get hooked, then all I have to do is wait like a week.
Yeah, and the pilot is I think a really strong episode, which cool. is I think unusual for Netflix shows.
Yeah, most of the time when I'm introducing a show to someone, I'm like, listen, man, the first episode's not that great, but stick with it and it'll be fucking dope. And so it's always good when you don't have to do that like preamble. Yeah, Glow is a clear after 1, you'll know if you're in or out. Dope. All right, I'll check it out. This is actually a pretty good pairing for the first show I'm going to recommend, which is not really all that new of a show. It's my second viewing all the way through from beginning to end, but I really fucking like Broad City. I fucking love that show. I don't know if you ever checked it out, but I find that show hysterical. Like, every episode's a fucking winner in my mind. There's not a single episode where I'm like, oh, this one sucks. I don't want to watch this right now. So I blew through the first 3 seasons a couple years ago, because I used to watch like their clips and everything. They were a web series before they were a legit TV show on Comedy Central, and I remember like seeing people posting stuff that I'd watch and it was funny. But then when they got their TV show, I was like, I'm already in, man. Like, I know this show's going to be good. So I blew through the first like 3 seasons a couple years ago whenever it came out, and then I for some reason didn't watch season 4, and I just waited for it to all come out and finally get on Hulu. So I just rewatched the season from beginning to end. It's still fucking hysterical. I cannot highly recommend it enough. It's produced by Amy Poehler, so you know, if you like her style, it's very much to place to her taste. And of course, it's got that SNL kind of connection to it. Yeah. Alternatively, speaking of SNL connections, a lot of crossover here. Lorne Michaels is an EP for another show that is unfortunately canceled, but had a 3-season run called Man Seeking Woman. Okay. And this one was a little bit less known, at least to me. I don't know if you knew about it. I know you're a big FXX fan, and so that was its home network while it was running. Yeah, that's where I've seen it, but I honestly haven't watched. It's really fucking good. It's really good. And so it has that SNL connection. Again, Lorne Michaels is the EP of this, and so you have crossover with a lot of the actors making guest appearances. Like, I was watching the shows simultaneously. I was watching Broad City back with my girlfriend and my other friend here at home. Then when I was at work, I was blowing through Man Seeking Woman. And I would watch an episode of Man Seeking Woman, and I'm like, oh, cool. Fred Armisen is playing Jesus in this episode. What? And then I would go home and watch Broad City, and I'm like, oh, cool. Fred Armisen is playing like this weird, like, age player, like weird fetisher in Broad City, and so it's just funny to fucking see him in both shows like on the same day. But so the whole thing about Man Seeking Woman, if you don't know, is it's actually a surrealist show, which I did not know that until I saw like a couple clips on YouTube, and I was like, what the fuck, this is nuts. And so everything will be like, I mean, you know what's surrealism, but for people who don't, like, the episodes revolve around very novel kind of concepts about dating in your 20s. Nothing really crazy about that at all. Where the like originality and the flair kind of comes in is how the situations are like presented to the audience. And so he'll be on a date, and it'll be a blind date by his sister will hook up a blind date with this guy. The main character's name is I can't even fucking remember. I'm horrible with names, but it's played by
Is that Jay Baruchel?
Baruchel, yeah. Thank you. I'm so fucking bad at names. God damn it. Played by Jay Baruchel, and his best friend is played by Eric Andre.
Oh, awesome.
And there's a bunch of other characters, like his sister Liz. I can't remember her name either, but she's really probably one of my favorite characters in the show. But so anyway, his sister will set him up on a blind date, and she'll talk her up and be like, oh, you know, she's from Sweden, and she lives in like this little place out in the woods, and she's very worldly and like whimsical and full of wisdom beyond her years, sort of stuff. And so you get this idea of like, you know, a really beautiful Swedish girl who like, you know, knows 3 languages and lives out in the woods and, you know, is in nature and everything like that. And she shows up to dinner, and it's literally like a troll, like literally like a person in a troll costume, like eating garbage and like scaring people on the street.
What?
And he's like, what the hell? What? She looks like a troll, and everyone doesn't see it but him, you know? And that's like the surrealist aspect. Or
that's great.
You know, there's another bit where he's been dating this girl for a while, for like a couple weeks or something like that, and it's getting like really serious. And his best bro, Eric Andre, pulls him onto like a bus and puts like an orange jumpsuit on him and gets a bunch of guys from like the city and does like a Scared Straight sort of thing where he's playing like the prison guard, and he's taking them into suburbia to show like what happens when you stay with your girlfriend for too long. And so they have like a Scared Straight sort of thing with a guy who's 39, has been married to his wife for 20 years and just like this soulless husk. And
That's
so, yeah,
awesome.
It's just every single episode, almost every single bit in that show revolves around some sort of crazy optical like stuff that's just out of this world, and it's just so fucking interesting. It just keeps me enthralled. Like another situation is that the older sister gets broken up by her long-term boyfriend and starts having an affair with a married man who ends up being Santa Claus. And so she has an affair with Santa Claus and gets into it with like Mrs. Claus, and that's the thing. And it's done so well that it's just, you're in. I love that show.
Wow,
Too
yeah,
bad it got canceled.
you are gushing, dude.
Yeah, I thought it was really just like creative. It's just gushing with creativity.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's on FX. Glow is on Netflix. Where can people watch Broad City?
Hulu. It's
okay.
A Comedy Central show. Anything Comedy Central. You can also find Man Seeking Woman on Hulu as well. So you get
awesome.
your twofer right there.
All right, there you go. That will do it for this episode of Dude, Is This Thing On? Emilio, if the people want to find you on the internet, where can they do that?
I mean, they can find us at Dude, Is This Thing On YouTube, YouTube.com/Dude, Is This Thing On, and you can find us on SoundCloud as well.
Awesome. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Tyler Daswick, or read the culture writing at relevantmagazine.com.
Awesome.
But there you go, man. That will do it for this episode. We're finally back. I think we found the rhythm again.
We did. I like this episode. It was really good.
Yeah, I like this one
nice.
too.
It was nice to get all this shit off my chest. I've been holding back for 2 fucking weeks. Therapeutic. I should be paying you, Tyler.
That's awesome. We'll keep it going next week. Man, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it on the air. But I want to talk a little bit about some of these interviews I've been doing.
Propose. All right, yeah, sorry.
But I want to talk about some of these interviews I've been doing. I think these are like cool conversations, and sometimes it's cool to process them. So I think it would be fun if I was kind of able to hash them out a little bit with you on the air.
No, dude, absolutely. Do you want to tease maybe what we will be talking about?
Yeah. Well, one that is going to be appearing in a print story pretty soon. I talked to Ethan Hawke a few weeks ago, and that was a trip. But I had an interview that I think I had always kind of hoped I would have this week. It was 2 nights ago, where I talked to Bo Burnham, comedian, director of 8th Grade, which is coming out in July. But that guy has always been one of my favorite comedians and has provoked a lot of thought and has been like weirdly influential for me. So it was kind of strange, like having a conversation with him.
Talking to your hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met, literally like once in a lifetime opportunity, but just your typical Tuesday.
It did not feel typical, and had one of the more uncommon interview reactions in terms of how I felt about it going out, and then how I felt about it listening back. It was cool. So yeah, we should definitely talk about it.
Definitely, dude. That sounds awesome.
All right, awesome. Okay, man, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you next week, guys.